The sky was still dark, not yet touched by morning light. Cold wind blew across the dusty ground of the mining colony called Vorex 5. People gathered in the main square, miners, traders, guards, and even children. They came not for justice, but for a show. At the center of the square, a young alien girl was dragged across the ground. 4 armored guards held her with a thick metal rope tied around her wrists and ankles. Her body was bruised, her knees scraped, her dress torn. Her skin was a pale violet, glowing softly, and her eyes, large and bright blue, were filled with fear. Someone from the crowd shouted, "Monster!" Another yelled, "Cut her down!" A third laughed, "Sell the pieces." Her eyes alone are worth a month's credit. She didn't cry. She had no tears left. She just looked at the execution platform where 4 poles stood, 1 for each limb. They were going to quarter her, tear her apart alive. It's not because she committed a crime, but because her species, the Ayari, once stood against humans in a long-forgotten war. Now, she was the last one left on this colony. 2 guards lifted her onto the wooden stage and tied her to the poles. The crowd roared louder. The executioner, man with a thick beard and black hood, held a long blade that shimmered in the torchlight. He raised the sword. She closed her eyes, and then a voice, a single, calm voice, cut through the madness like lightning. "I invoke Earth's protection accord." The crowd went silent. Even the executioner paused. From the edge of the square, a man stepped forward. Human, mid-30s, no weapons, no armor. Just a dusty coat and a calm expression. His eyes were sharp, his voice steady. The guards turned their guns on him. "State your name," the judge on the balcony above shouted. "Cade Mercer," he answered. "Earth-born citizen, registered engineer. I invoke Section 1 to be of the Protection Accord, filed under interstellar treaty law. This girl is now under Earth-human guardianship." Murmurs spread through the crowd. No one had ever seen the law used before. Most didn't even believe it was real. The Protection Accord was an old law created after the last Galactic War, meant to protect endangered or enslaved species, only usable by Earth citizens. The judge frowned. "This is a mining colony. That law means nothing here." Cade stepped forward, ignoring the weapons pointed at him. "She is one of the last of her kind. Killing her is a violation of Earth's Empire Treaty. If you continue, your colony will be cut off from Earth trade routes within 72 hours. The whispers turned into fear. Trade routes were lifelines. No parts, no fuel, no tech updates. The executioner lowered his blade. The guards looked uncertain. The judge leaned closer. "Do you understand what you're doing, human? If you claim her, she becomes your responsibility, her debts, her danger, punishment." "I know," Cade said quietly. A long silence. Finally, the judge raised his hand. "Release her." The crowd groaned. Some cursed. Others spat in the dirt. But the guards followed orders. They untied the alien girl. Her legs gave out and she collapsed on the stage. Cade stepped up, bent down, and lifted her into his arms. She was light, trembling, and smelled of smoke and metal. As he walked through the silent crowd, people stepped aside, unsure what to do. A few stared in disbelief. Others turned their backs. The girl didn't speak. She simply rested her head against his chest, breathing slowly. That night, back at his old workshop near the edge of the colony, Cade placed her on a makeshift bed made from blankets and parts. He gave her water. She drank without saying a word. After some time, he sat nearby and asked gently, "What's your name?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Lixa." "Lixa," he repeated softly. "You're safe now." "Dawn." She looked at him, her eyes still full of fear. Still unsure? Then she said something that made Cade pause. "You didn't just save me. You claimed me. It means they'll come for both of us now." He stared at her, not knowing what she meant fully. But deep down he knew this wasn't the end of danger. It was only the beginning. The next morning, the sky over Vorex 5 turned a dull copper as the twin suns rose behind layers of pollution and smoke. The colony came alive with machines, laborers, and whispers. Whispers about the human who stopped the execution, About the alien girl whose death had been promised but interrupted, Cade didn't care what they whispered. His workshop was far from the colony's central blocks, half buried in scrap metal, surrounded by broken bots and rusting hulls. He didn't fix ships for glory, just enough for supplies. He had chosen this lonely life to escape bureaucracy, not drag it back into his home. Inside, the girl was still asleep, wrapped in blankets made from worn-out thermal sheets. Her body was covered in faint glowing lines marks of her species, like veins of blue fire under her pale skin. She looked young, barely out of adolescence in human terms, but there was something ancient in her stillness. As if she'd stopped fighting the universe long ago, Cade stood by the corner, typing into his old terminal. His fingers paused as a warning. Flashed across the screen. Violation notice. Accord activation detected. Earth Council inquiry imminent. He cursed under his breath. He knew invoking the protection accord wasn't going to go unnoticed. But he hadn't expected Earth's eyes to turn this quickly. Worse, the Council inquiry meant they would ask questions why he did it. What his intentions were, what the girl was worth. And she was worth a lot, whether he liked it or not. Suddenly, a low whine made him turn. The Galactic was awake. She tried to sit up, but fell back, wincing as pain shot through her body. "Easy," Cade said, walking over. "You're still healing." She looked at him, blinking slowly.
No.
Her voice was soft but clear. "Why?" He didn't understand. "Why?" "What? Why did you save me?" Cade paused. That was the question, wasn't it? He hadn't planned to. He hadn't even known she was on trial until the crowd gathered and the announcements rang out. Something about the way they paraded her, like a broken trophy. Not a person had pushed something deep inside him, something that refused to stay quiet. "I don't know," he answered honestly, "but I wasn't going to let them cut you. 2 pieces while I stood there like the rest of them." She stared at him longer. Then she said something strange. "You invoked the accord. That makes you my protector, under ancient bond." "I know the law," Cade muttered, sitting across from her, "but it's just paper. I'm not your master. You're free now." Lix's eyes darkened. "It's not about freedom. It's about what comes next. You claimed me. And now they'll bind that claim to both of us. Every danger I carry, you'll carry too." Cade didn't answer. Instead, he opened a storage. Creighton pulled out a small medkit. "You have wounds. Let me check." He reached toward her, but the moment his hand neared the metal collar still around her neck, she flinched violently. "Don't touch it." She gasped. He pulled his hand back. "What is it?" She breathed hard, holding the collar with both hands. "This isn't just metal. It's coded, burned into my skin. They used it to track, punish, rewrite." She nodded. "Thoughts? My memories? Some days I forget my own name until I hear it. This collar holds commands, buried orders that can be triggered from anywhere." Cade stood slowly. "Then we need to remove it." "You can't," she whispered. "If you try, it will shock both of us. And if you succeed, it might trigger the failsafe." He frowned. "Failsafe. Detonation," she said quietly. "A microbomb in my spine. Just in case someone tries to free us." Cade's mouth went dry. He had known slave tech was brutal, but this was beyond what even Earth claimed to tolerate. This was extermination insurance. He returned to the terminal, searching for anything code, schematics, even black market threads. But all he got were locked archives and ancient files hidden deep in encrypted servers. Finally, one name surfaced: Project Soilborn. He clicked it. Access denied. He tried again. Still denied. Lix's voice behind him was barely above a whisper. "Don't open that." He turned. "Why?" "Because it's what started the burning. The project that tested memory reprogramming on IARI civilians. They turned us into bombs, into ghosts. That file is a map to what they buried under the ash." Cade stared at her, the weight of her words crashing onto his shoulders. He thought he had saved a girl, but he was beginning to realize he had. Claimed a living secret the galaxy wanted erased, and now they'd come for both of them. Night fell hard over the edge of the colony, blanketing Cade's workshop in thick shadows. The distant mines kept humming, and transport ships still passed overhead, but here on the outskirts it was quiet. Too quiet. Cade sat at his desk, screen still glowing with partial access codes and dead-end search results. His mind was racing, not just with fear, but with guilt. Lixa lay on the padded floor mat nearby. Her eyes were open, but her body stayed. Still, she hadn't spoken in hours. The collar around her neck pulsed with a slow, dull red glow. A timer? A signal? Neither of them knew for sure. Cade stood up, grabbed his scanner device, and approached her carefully. "I'm going to scan it," he said softly, crouching beside her. "Just a scan, no contact." She nodded once. No words. No resistance either, as he held the scanner near her neck. The device immediately started flashing warnings: foreign tech, layered encryption, self-repairing code. Underneath it all, a strange pulsating rhythm in the data. Like breathing. He blinked. "This code is alive," Lixa finally spoke. "They called it memory steal. It grows, learns, changes." He frowned. "You mean it's adapting?" "It doesn't just adapt," she whispered. "It copies. Everything I feel. Everything. I think it listens, and it remembers." Cade stared at the readout in disbelief. He had never seen tech like this. Not even during the war, when both sides unleashed their worst machines. This wasn't just a collar. It was a prison with a mind of its own. And worse's scanner was now locked. The collar had hacked it. Suddenly, sparks jumped from the device, and Cade dropped it with a sharp hiss. Lixa sat up quickly. "They know what? They know you scanned it, that alert. It goes to the ones who made it. They'll trace you now." Cade stepped back, breathing hard. His systems were connected. 2 colony networks? That meant if the signal leaked, anyone with the right clearance or credits could find them. He rushed to his comms terminal and slammed a manual override switch. Ow. The lights flickered. The network dropped. "We're offline," he muttered. "For now." But even as the room dimmed, something else lit up, a faint blue glow along the edge of Lixa's collar. Then a second glow shimmered faintly along her right arm, pulsing in perfect sync. The same rhythm from before? It's like a song only the collar remembered. Cade stared. "What is that?" She hesitated. Then slowly, she lifted her arm and showed him something he hadn't seen before. Etched just under her skin, almost invisible, were alien markings glyphs that pulsed faintly beneath the surface. "It's a map," she said. "A map to what?" "To the burned village." Cade felt the name hit like a weight. She continued. "They destroyed everything. But they didn't destroy what we left underneath. My people stored the last IRE knowledge inside memory crystals. They buried it. Before the purge, and this collar leads to it, part of it. They used our own people as living keys, our blood, our minds encoded to unlock those hidden places. When they made these collars, they didn't just erase us. They used us." Cade looked away, ashamed. I thought. Earth stopped doing that. Lixa didn't respond. He knew why, 'cause they hadn't. After a long silence, Cade stood and walked toward a locked crate near the wall. He opened it and pulled out a small, dusty containment field, a portable locker for dangerous tech. Inside was a disassembled shock collar, an older version used on war prisoners. He placed it next to Lixa's neck and powered it up. She flinched. "What are you doing?" "Testing something," he said. "If the signal in your collar mimics this frequency, maybe I can trigger a feedback loop. I can't hack it from outside, but maybe I can confuse it from inside." Lixa stared at him, unsure. "I won't risk you," he added. She nodded once. "Do it." He linked the 2 devices and activated a signal scramble. The room buzzed. The lights dimmed. Then, collar on Lixa's neck flickered wildly red, then blue, then black. Her eyes widened. Her hands went to her throat. "No pain," she whispered. It stopped. Cade moved slowly to confirm the readings. The collar wasn't deactivated, but it was. Sleeping. He looked at her. It worked. But before they could celebrate, A sharp sound cracked through the still-era transmission. Force through the shutdown comms system. Unauthorized signal disruption detected. Reinforcements en route. Do not move the asset. Lixa froze. They're coming. Cade didn't panic. He stood tall, walked over to the old panel near his door, and flipped open a hidden compartment. Inside, 2 pulse rifles and 1 cloaking emitter. He tossed the smaller rifle to Lixa. You said I claimed you, right? She caught it with shaking hands. Then let's make them regret ever putting a price on your life. And in that moment, she didn't look like a scared girl anymore. She looked like something that had just remembered who she used to be. Asterisk wind howled through the scrapyard that surrounded Cade's workshop, rattling loose metal sheets and sending dust spiraling into the night sky. Inside, the silence was deeper, heavier, like something ancient had awakened and was holding its breath. Cade stared at the transmission log. It had come from an encrypted military channel, Earth-based but unregistered. That meant Black Ops. No uniforms, no names, just objectives. These weren't bounty hunters or local enforcers. They were the kind of men who made problems disappear. Lixa was still standing in the center of the room, clutching the rifle he had handed her. She didn't know how to hold it properly. Her species didn't use such weapons, but her eyes had changed. No longer just scared, now ... alert, ready. Cade moved quickly, grabbing a satchel and throwing in emergency supplies, rations, tools, signal jammers, and a plasma torch. We can't stay here. Once they breach orbit, they'll triangulate. Dislocation within minutes. Lixa didn't argue. She just said, "Where will we go?" There's an old subtunnel under the waste sector. Leads to the outer ridge. No scanners down there, too much interference. If we make it that far, I have a ship, old cargo hauler. It's not fast, but it can fly under radar. Before they could move, the door sensor chirped. Motion detected multiple. Heat signatures approaching. Too soon. Cade checked the terminal. They're jamming our sensors. Could be 5 of them. Could be 20. He moved to the wall and activated the emergency defense grid turrets. Disguised as scrap, rose up from the dirt outside, scanning for intruders. Then the first pulse. Hit! The blast knocked out half the lighting in the workshop. The walls shuddered, and the ceiling cracked with dust. Outside, something heavy smashed into the barricade with a mechanical screech. Cade ducked behind the workbench and yelled, "Take cover!" Lixa ran behind a support beam, just as a blast tore through the front wall. Heat and debris filled the air. Through the smoke, Cade saw a figure enter, tall, armored, helmeted, moving like a machine. No insignia, no hesitation. Cade opened fire. His pulse shots hit the intruder square in the chest, but the armor absorbed the hits. The figure kept coming. Lixa screamed as a second attacker came through the side wall. Gun raised. She didn't think she just raised her own weapon and fired. Wildly. The shot clipped the attacker's arm, sending him crashing into a fuel tank that exploded with a dull boom. The blast lit the whole yard in orange flame. Shadows danced across the metal walls. In the chaos, Cade grabbed Lixa's hand. Door, now. They sprinted through the corridor, past old engines and tool racks, until they reached the hidden hatch beneath the floor. Cade kicked it open and motioned for her to climb down. They descended into the tunnels below, dark, narrow, filled with the smell of rust and old oil. Pipes hissed above them, and thick cables hung like dead vines. Cade slammed the hatch shut and welded it closed with his plasma torch. Breathing hard, they kept moving. Lixa finally asked, "What were those things?" "Spotifs," Cade said. "Special class, modified bodies, enhanced reflexes. Not people anymore, just programs." "In flesh, why would they send something like that for me?" she asked, voice shaking. He looked at her, his face grim. "Because you're not just a witness, you're a carrier." She stopped. "What do you mean?" Cade opened a side panel in the tunnel wall and connected his wrist device. The screen flickered to life, showing the files he had stolen from the caller's memory bank during the short disruption earlier. "What you told me about the burned village. It's worse than that." He brought up a set of fragmented images, glimpses of experiments, Ayari bodies hooked to machines. Earth scientists smiling behind glass, and black box messages marked soil burn red line. You're a vault, Lixa. They encoded entire data chains into your biology. Memories, histories, maybe weapons designs, or psychic maps. You're the last copy of something they swore never existed. Her hands trembled. They put that in. Me. Not by choice. Your kind encoded yourselves. Your people tried to preserve their truth, so they used themselves as living backups. But Earth, they twisted it. Lixa pressed her hand to her stomach as if suddenly sick. Then I'm not me. I'm just a container. Cade stopped walking and turned to her. No, you're you. You survived. And that means your voice is the one they couldn't silence. She looked at him, something flickering in her eyes' hope. Maybe. Or something like it. Behind them, the tunnel shook again. Explosions echoed from above. The operatives were breaching the workshop, scanning for movement. Digging deeper. Cade pushed open a metal grate at the tunnel's end. Fresh air rushed. In, they emerged on the outer Regia cliff of red stone, overlooking the lower scrapyards. In the distance, Cade's ship waited, a bulky old hauler patched with different metals, but still functional. They ran. As they approached, the ship's AI flickered to life. Unauthorized proximity detected. Launch in 1 minute recommended. Cade entered his clearance codes. The ramp dropped. They sprinted up into the cargo bay. Behind them, a distant scream, echoed mechanical, inhuman. One of the operatives had found their scent. As the ramp closed, Lixa turned to Cade. If we escape, what then? They won't stop. Cade activated the engines. The ship rumbled, rising into the air. We don't run, he said. We expose. Them, burn them with their own secrets. Lix's expression hardened. Then let's make the stars remember who we are. The stars outside the viewport looked cold and endless, but inside the old hauler, the air burned with silence. Cade sat in the pilot's seat, one hand gripping the throttle, the other resting over a panel of blinking red lights. Every second, the ship trembled slightly, old engines trying their best to outrun a signal they both knew was already spreading. Lixa sat in the co-pilot seat, staring out at the black. She hadn't spoken since takeoff. Her collar had gone dark again, but the silence wasn't comforting. It was waiting, watching. Like a wolf pretending to be dead, she finally broke the silence. You said we'd expose them? But how? Cade tapped a screen. This ship has a smuggler's array used to bounce signals off old satellites and redirect them anonymously. I've been using it for side work, but it can send encrypted packets across star routes. If we leak the files from your collar and match them with public war records, we can prove Earth's government committed war crimes. Lix's voice was quiet. Do you think the galaxy will care? He turned to her. They will if they see it, if we survive long enough to show them. Just then, the warning alarm blared. Hostile vessel detected. Interceptor class. Distance, 12,000 kilometers. Speed, triple standard. Heart dropped. They followed us. Lixa leaned forward. We're still too close to Vorex space. They must have sent a beacon before we launched. He cursed under his breath. Our only chance is the storm belt around Ren's ring. It's electromagnetic. Chaos out there, but it'll hide us. You can fly through that, she asked. I can try. He veered the ship hard toward the ring of shifting violet storms ahead. Massive clouds of electric gas spun like giants, flickering with blue lightning. No sane pilot flew into it. Ships vanished in there. Fried or lost forever. But they didn't have a choice. The interceptor behind them fired a warning shot. The blast tore past their port wing, close enough to shake the hull. Inside the cockpit, lights flickered. The AI calmly announced, shields at 60%. Recommend evasive action or surrender. Cade spat. Override that voice. Prepare countermeasures. He flicked a switch, launching 3 dummy pods from the ship's underbelly. They shot in opposite directions, each releasing flares and jamming signals. The enemy vessel paused just for a second. But that was enough. Cade plunged the hauler into the edge of Ren's ring. The ship screamed. Electric pulses surged along the hull. The screens blinked. Gravity buckled. Hold on, Cade shouted. Lixa gripped the seat with both hands, her eyes wide. Then the world went white, blinding light, static in their ears. Weightlessness and silence when the storm passed and the sensors returned. They were floating inside a pocket of calm, inside the storm, a dead zone. Cade let out a breath. We're hidden, for now. But even as they caught their breath, something beeped, the collar, faintly, barely. Glowing again, Lixa looked down at it, terrified. It's talking, she whispered. Not to them, to me. Cade stood, grabbing a scanning tool. What is it saying? She closed her eyes. It's showing me memories, not mine. Not fully from others like me. She began to speak faster, now describing things she couldn't have known. A laboratory buried deep under a dead moon, a child screaming. A man in a white coat whispering, "You were born to forget." Her hands began to shake. "Make it stop," she whispered. I don't want their memories. Cade pressed the scanner. Close, trying to isolate the signal. But then something else happened. A surge. A voice came through the comm system, not from outside, but from inside the ship. A female voice, smooth and cold. Cade Mercer. You have taken protected Imperial property. This is your first and final warning. Release the subject, or be erased. Cade stared at the speaker. Who are you? The voice replied. We are the ones who fix mistakes. That girl is one of them. Lixa stood, trembling with rage. I'm not a mistake. You made me this way. You tried to bury our pain and called it programming. The voice ignored her. Transmission ends. Countdown initiated. You have 3 minutes to comply. And then silence again. Cade turned to Lixa. We can't run anymore. She nodded. Then what do we do? He walked to the central console, opened a hidden case, and pulled out a black Cuba memory storage unit.
All legal in most systems?
I've been saving this for something important. He placed it on the table, linked it to the collar. Let's copy everything in you. The truth, the pain, the memories. Let the galaxy see what they tried to hide. But they'll come for us, she said. They already are. The cube began to glow, filling with raw data images, voices, screams. Names dot outside the storm belt. The enemy ships circled. But inside, something ancient stirred. As Lixa clutched her head and whispered names she didn't know, Cade held her steady. I've got you, he said. You're not a mistake. You're the truth they couldn't kill. And in that moment, she believed him. Asterisk, the cube kept glowing. Lines of light traced along its smooth edges, pulsing with each new memory pulled from the collar. It wasn't just dated, it was emotion, pain, joy, terror, love, betrayal, compressed into streams of living code, pouring out of Lixa like smoke from a sealed vault, cracked open for the first time in decades. She leaned over the table, her breath shallow, hands pressed against the cold metal. Her body trembled. Her lips moved, whispering names. Names of the dead, of places turned to ash, of voices erased from history. Cade sat beside her, monitoring the download. His eyes flicked between the readouts and Lix's face. She looked like she was splitting apart, but not physically. Like she was remembering too many lives at once. And the weight of it was dragging her under. Lixa, he said softly, you need to slow down. I can't, she whispered. It's not me doing it. The collar, it's opening every lock all at once. Then we stop it. No, she said, and finally looked at him. Her voice was strained but firm. We finish it. We get it all. If even one part is lost, it'll be like they won again. Cade hesitated, then nodded. He tightened the stabilizer on the cube and activated the internal dampeners. Okay, we ride it out. The storm belt outside shook the ship with a sudden hard jolt. A crack of lightning danced across the port view, white and purple and violent. The engines growled, and warning lights flared across the console. Stabilizers. At 70%? Hull integrity compromised. Recommend escape route within 15 minutes. Cade ignored the AI. He knew they wouldn't last long here, But if they left now, they'd be seen again. Worse, they wouldn't finish the upload. Then something new happened. The cube stopped glowing, but instead of going dark, it began to hum. A deep, vibrating sound that filled the whole room. Cade reached for it, then jerked his hand back. It was warm. Too warm, Lixa said. She looked up. Her pupils had narrowed. Her skin glowed brighter now, bioluminescent lines racing down. Her neck and arms. She wasn't in pain anymore. She was focused. "It's a message," she said slowly. "From the first ones? My people, the ones who encoded all this. A message to who?" "To humans," she whispered. "To warn them." "A what?" She looked at him. The future. Before Cade could respond, the cube activated. Projection light burst upward, forming a 3D image above the table. A city appeared, ancient and beautiful. Floating towers, crystal spires, gardens that hung in the air like feathers in the wind, then dash fire, explosions, ships blotting out the sky, screams echoing through the projection, and at the center of it all, an Earth flag. Cade stared in horror. "This is what they erased," Lixa said, her voice hollow. "This was our homeworld before it was labeled uninhabitable in Earth's records." The projection shifted, showing human officers rewriting logs, smiling at the camera as they shut. "Down life pods. They didn't just kill us," she said. "They laughed while they did it." Cade felt sick and angry. But before he could speak, the AI interrupted again. "Multiple vessels approaching. 5 interceptors. Speed maximum." Stood up slowly. The glow around her was almost too bright. "Now we send the message," she said. "They'll shoot us down," Cade replied. "Then let's make sure they can't stop it in time." He nodded, turned to the console, and loaded the cube's data into the long-range pulse beacon. It would take nearly all their power to send, but it would blast the truth across 5 systems. It's enough to make it stick. It's enough to make people question what they'd been told. As he prepared the beacon, Lixa walked toward the rear of the ship. She placed her hand on the emergency hatch, the one connected to the old engine core. "What are you doing?" he asked. "They want me, right?" she said calmly.
Ow.
"Then I'll give them something to chase. You're not going anywhere." "Not dying," she said, turning to him. "I'm buying time." She activated the door sequence. Cade rushed to her, grabbing her arm. "I didn't save you so you could throw your life away. You didn't save me," she said softly. "You gave me the choice." Their eyes locked, then her hand pressed against his chest. "I'll find you," she whispered. "When this is over." She stepped back. The door opened. Vacuum pulled her out into the storm. Cade turned to the console. The interceptors were closing in. 20 seconds to impact. He punched the beacon ignition. A burst of white light fired from the top of the ship, ripping through the clouds. Preachy. The stars, and across the galaxy, began to spread. The truth, the names, the screams, and Lix's voice. "I am a Yari, and I remember everything." The beacon's light vanished into the void, too fast for the eye, too wide for any one world to contain. It passed through towers, drift stations, satellite webs, anywhere that still clung to Earth's network, broke into 1,000. Encrypted fragments, and seeded itself into backup servers, hidden relays, and deep data vaults waiting to be pieced together, waiting to be heard. Cade slumped against the control panel, drenched in sweat, his hands trembling from adrenaline and fury. Alarms still wailed around him. The interceptors hadn't turned away. If anything, they were accelerating. The AI reported coldly, impact imminent. Ship integrity at 23%. Life support failing. Eject sequence advised. Yeah. Cade didn't move. He was still staring at the viewports, searching for any sign of her lie. XA had vanished into the storm belt like a spark thrown into a hurricane. No tracking, no signal, nothing. He didn't even know if she was alive. A part of him still expected her voice to crackle through the CUM system at any moment. Joking, teasing, alive. But silence was all he got. The first interceptor broke. Through the clouds, sharp and black like a metal fang. It locked onto his ship instantly, charging its weapons. He reached for the controls, then stopped. What was left to fight for? Then the console flashed. A message, just one. Detonation signature detected. Origin, Ayari Biocore. Vessel compromised. Cade's breath caught. Then the interceptor wobbled in the air, sparks trailing from its hull. A blast of light tore from its engine sand. It vanished in a blink, disintegrated by a shockwave of pure blue energy. "What the hell?" Cade whispered. The second and third ships halted their approach. Systems scrambled. Their targeting locked. Up. Their stabilizers reversed mid-spin. The fourth tried to escape, but it didn't make it far before crashing into a burning arc of plasma lightning that came out of nowhere. And then, all was still. Cade stood wide-eyed, watching the storm, slowly calm. One by one, the enemy ships disappeared from his radar. No missiles. No fighters. No more orders. Just debris and silence. And then, through the crackling static of the cum line, voice returned. Hers. "You thought I'd die in a storm?" Cade nearly collapsed, laughing through his shock. "Lixa. Where how?" "That engine core. In your old hauler. Not just scrap. Had a dormant jump drive woven into the heat coils. I pushed it through me, one-time burn, but it fried their sensors in half my mind." He sat down, stunned. "I thought I lost you." "Myself," she said. "But then I remembered. You gave me something they never did. A reason to come back." He leaned forward. "Where are you now?" "Floating somewhere on the edge. No control systems, no nav. But alive, for now." Cade wiped his face. "I'll find you. You better," she said, soft laughter in her voice. Then her tone shifted, somber and full of weight. "The beacon worked, didn't it?" Cade turned to his screen. Already network alerts were blinking. He tapped into the subchannels, and his jaw clenched. It was spreading pirate news feeds. Fringe rebellion networks, even diplomatic forums people were talking. Images from the burned village, testimonies, eyewitness memories. The laugh of the man in the white coat as he shut down a life pod. It's a sound of children screaming inside metal crates. And her name, Lixa. Her voice had been recorded in the final broadcast, repeating 3 words over and over. "I remember everything. Now." Others were remembering too. There were denials from Earth, of course. Fabricated. Enemy propaganda. Data manipulation. But those voices were outnumbered now. People were asking questions. Real ones. Cade smiled. "You did it," he said aloud. "You made the stars listen, not just me." Her voice crackled back. "You were the first to stand between me and the blade." That's the moment everything changed. He nodded. And now, there was a pause. "Now we let the truth burn its way across the galaxy. You gather the ones who believe. I'll find the ones still in chains." "Lixa," he whispered. "You're not a mistake." "I never was," she said. "They just wanted me to believe that." Then silence again. But this time it wasn't empty. It was filled with purpose. Weeks passed, and months. The story of the Ayari massacre spread like fire. Former soldiers came forward. Scientists defected. Underground leaders demanded justice. Systems once loyal to Earth began to fracture. It was no longer about one girl. It was about every voice that had been buried, every memory erased, every chain hidden under law, and somewhere, drifting on the edge of space, Lixa continued to survive, searching ruins, freeing those like her, building something new from the pieces of what had been lost. As for Cade, he was no longer a nameless engineer. He was a symbol. The man who stood in a crowd of killers and said, "No." The one who saw a girl on her knees and gave her a name. Back. The first to protect, not conquer. They had wanted a reward for saving her. But what Cade got was a revolution. And somewhere, when the night was quiet and the stars aligned just right, he could still hear her voice. "I remember everything." And so did the galaxy. Forever. Now.